episode.
Hey, I'm Derek.
And I'm Noah, and this is A Bite Of,
where we take our favorite current pop culture obsession and enjoy it one nibble at a time.
Yes, we're ready to nibble.
This is like season 1, ep 1.
Yes,
this is
season 1.
For real.
Yeah. Oh man, super excited. I know we've been wanting to do this for a while. Now we have an excuse to do it.
I mean, we talk about stuff that we love all the time to each other, so we might as well record it and let other people listen.
Yeah, we have like a big Instagram following too, and I feel like we kind of shoehorn our like obsessions all the time.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna love anime and comic books and all this stuff and just anything else, and so now it's like time to let it flourish and breathe and be its own thing. So this is season 1.
Season 1, episode 1.
And this season, every episode, we will be taking a bite of...
Ooh, name drop.
Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer.
Dun. I know what you're thinking. Like, what are two guys doing Twilight? And why so far? Like, from 10 years has it been? Like, it's been so long since Twilight's been in anybody's really mind.
First of all, how dare you? Second of all, I mean, I think that the love triangle, or whatever it ended up being, quadrangle of like Bella, Jacob, Edward, and Renesmee / imprinting on her
uterus?
Like, I didn't want to say it, but I mean, that's the deal, right?
Yeah,
we'll always forever live in our minds, you know? And I think the books were such a huge deal. And then the movies came along and it just went insane. And then cut to quarantine 2020. Stephanie Meyer was like, you know what the world needs? Midnight Sun.
You know, I'm curious because, like, do you remember when this like manuscript was leaked?
Yeah, I think it was in 2008, and she had like done a little bit of it. And someone found it. It's actually funny, when I was on Goodreads, like putting in my progress and everything for reading Midnight Sun, if you type in Midnight Sun, it actually says like Midnight Sun blog post. Like, so that
the original one.
Yeah, that original is actually on Goodreads, and you could log it in your Goodreads.
Did you read any of it?
No, I didn't.
I remember trying to read some of it, and back then it was like weird to still read on like a computer screen of a book, and I was just like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, not happening. Right. Not happening.
But cut to like 10 years later, it's like, oh, here you go.
But I kind of think that's sort of the magic of it, right? Is that in 2008, like that was right when the last movie came out. So it was like Twilight was everywhere. Backpacks, lunchboxes, folders, you know, all over online,
tattoos.
Every magazine, tattoos. Dun, dun,
so
dun.
before we get into like, you know, the meat and potatoes of this
love those
episode, like what was your first experience with Twilight? Like, how did it get introduced to you? Was it thrusted upon you? Did you stumble upon it?
I think I was the thruster, honestly.
Yeah, you are.
So I was actually working at the magazine. So before I was a librarian, I worked at a magazine. And at the magazine, we got Entertainment Weekly. And they did this huge article about Twilight. And so I came into it really late. I came into it when Breaking Dawn was coming out.
Oh, so like the movies were being made?
The movies were being made, exactly. And so the whole thing was that they just released who the cast would be. And I was like, what is this? I don't know what this is. What's happening? So I was like, all right, I got to check this out. I was working in the city in Manhattan at the time. I ran down to the Barnes & Noble on Fifth Avenue. I got the first one. I started to read it. I was like, wait. I need all of these right now. I remember I brought a tote bag with me. It had rope handles on it.
Very vivid.
I got all 4 of them. And I remember going home on the train when I lived in Queens, and I just had this giant bag of 30 pounds of Twilight books.
Jeez.
And I
so you like
them.
bought the first one and then we're like, wait a second. Let me get all of them.
Yeah, I need the whole thing. And then I introduced my friends to it, and that was it. We were just like totally and completely hooked. But like, how about like, were you from the beginning? Were you?
No. So I was kind of in the same boat as you. So I knew nothing about, okay. So I saw the covers a lot in school and like, you know, people carrying around and stuff, but I was reading other books like Harry Potter or something like that, like more astute books.
Oh, sure. Yes. Learned.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, whatever. And a girl I was dating at the time, so this was a long time ago.
OMG, what?
A girl I was dating at the time, her sister was obsessed with Twilight. And she was like, do you want to come to the movies with me and my family? Just like see this, no big deal movie that's coming out, Twilight. And I was like, I mean, I guess, what is it about? She's like, vampires. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I went to go see it and I was like, everybody in the movie theater is freaking the frick out.
Yeah.
Like just going crazy.
Bananas.
Yeah. And I knew nothing. I was like, okay, this is a little indie. This is like not...
Catherine Hardwicke, what is this? So moody.
Right. And I'm like, okay, they sparkle. That's cool. But wait, they have powers too? Like, okay, now you got me.
Yeah.
And then the next day I went out and got the books and then literally devoured them so quickly. Like, so it's kind of the same as you. It was just like I was a little late to it and then I just devoured them. And I was like, why am I consuming this so much? Why did I get so obsessed with this?
Totally. Yeah, totally all consuming. You get through them so fast. Like I remember being totally cuddled up in bed, just like just crazy reading New Moon. Like the drama of those pages where it's just the months. Remember, it's just the months because she's so depressed. No, Bella. Oh my God, where did he go? She jumps in the water. It's so cold. Anyway, sorry. I'm reliving that moment. Oh my God. So I think like just taking a look at the books and see how it like kind of took over us, like it would be kind of cool to look back and see how it took over the world and how it all started.
So are you talking about like a little history and background on
Let's
Twilight?
get into Twilight 101, a history of a phenomenon.
Oh, God.
So Twilight, which is the first book in the quartet, was released on October 5th, 2005. And New Moon came out in September 2006, and then Eclipse in August 2007, and then the big Breaking Dawn in August of 2008.
Holy crap, they came out back to back.
Yeah, she had them. Well, what's so crazy is that, so she says that it all started from a dream. Like if you go, so on her blog, she writes this whole thing about how Twilight started. And so she just had this dream of like this very plain girl talking to this very sparkly vampire in a field. And the main things were, she says, A, that they were falling in love with each other, and B, the vampire was particularly attracted to the scent of her blood and was having a difficult time restraining himself from killing her immediately.
That's like a very vivid dream.
Very vivid. It was so vivid that she had to then write it. So she wrote that dream happened on June 2nd. And then she gave life to the characters. She gave them names. She kept writing epilogues for them. So she's like, okay, there's a sequel that I have to write. And it literally, from that day in June 2nd until it was like going to be published, was only 6 months.
No.
Yes. That's what she writes. Like on her blog, she says it only took 6 months. Do you know how like rare that is in the publishing world? It's insane. Yeah. Like she said, she sent out a bunch of query letters. She got a few rejections, and then Little Brown picked it up. And
Which
then,
is no small publishing company.
No. But let me tell you, though, this also kind of like blew Little Brown up. They weren't so little anymore. Okay? I remember, so like I've gone to publisher previews at Little Brown, and they're like when, I think her name is Megan something or other. That's the woman that like published it there at her imprint. Like when she got up to speak at one, they're like, she's the one that discovered Twilight. All the librarians are whispering. Like it's a big deal. Like, she discovered this huge giant thing. And it literally took 6 months, which is insane. And then of course the movies came out, which made it even crazier. So
they came out super quick after the book, right?
They did. So they came out, I think, Twilight, the first movie, was released November 21st, 2008. So it came out right when, right after the final book came out.
Oh, which is super great for marketing and, like, relevancy.
Oh, they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Formula for a phenomenon.
Bam! Do you want millions of dollars? Yes! And then she's $1 million. So the Hollywood Reporter says that the Twilight books have sold more than 100 million copies worldwide. And according to Forbes, overall, the films have earned $2.5 billion at the global box office.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And I don't know what cut Stephenie Meyer gets, but I'm sure it's pretty healthy. And she decided, I'm going to release this other book.
Yeah, like, well, you know, it's like, I have this thing in my mind where, like, she's had this for a while, or at least, like, this concept or whatever. And she's like, you know what? I could go for another, like, $1 billion. Let me just, like, drop this. You know?
Why not?
I mean, I would. Right? I would be like, people are still talking about Twilight. Like, if you go to, like, Facebook groups for Twilight, there's, like, hundreds of thousands of fans still posting today about it. So it's not like it's like the Harry Potter phenomenon where it's just like evergreen. Like there's people that are just constantly engrossed by it.
Yeah, so it's not like things quieted down for a while. It's like, I mean, and I'm using this, right? Twihards was a thing. Like that's what they were called?
I forgot.
Or is that like derogatory?
I mean, I don't think, I think either one. I think it's like one of those things where, like, depending on how you use it in a sentence.
Sure. I'm just describing a group. Twihards. Like, so they're still there, you know, and they're still discussing the books. They're still discussing the movies. And Midnight Sun, which we are here in 2020 with Midnight Sun, is sold out.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, like, we were in a Barnes & Noble and a woman was looking for it and they were like, sorry, sold out. Like, it's sold. People are still devouring this property. Yeah,
with like us being in quarantine, we're kind of used to getting things digitally or ordering them on Amazon, and we're like, oh yeah, this book is coming out. Let's just download it on our Kindles. We're like, that's fine. And then like, you know, we were talking about doing this, and we're like, maybe we should get the actual physical copy. And right before that, we were in Target, and I was like, oh look, there's the book. Like it's huge, it's thick. You know, the cover creeps me the fuck out, but it's great. And so we're like, oh, we'll get it later. And it's sold out now. We should have got that one copy.
Well, you know, that one copy, the cover was a little askew. So for
that's why it was still
for
there.
The collector and me, I was like, you guys, we can't. And by you guys, it was just you in the middle of Target. But, you know, there's always an audience there, I'm sure.
There's a mirror.
There's a mirror. It's just me talking to a mirror in the middle of Target. I'm actually on one of the TV screens. You know how they have like that feed? I'm just like talking like
I
you
hate
guys.
those. I always feel guilty. I'm like, am I stealing right now? Because I'm on one of those monitors.
They think you are. Always. So I think it's time that we dive in, right? So this week, we're going to be taking a bite of Midnight Sun.
Chapters 1 through 5.
Chapters 1 through 5.
The beginning of the book.
The beginning, the start. I mean, it sounds like a really obvious place, but I think it makes the most sense.
Yeah, and, you know, obviously, spoiler warning, like, if you don't want to know what happens in the first 5 chapters, stop listening now, go read those chapters, and then come back to us. Because we will be giving you spoilers and talking about it.
For sure.
But so, like, back to the cover, right?
Oh, yes. Yes, let's talk about this. I wanted to talk about this.
So we're literally starting from the cover.
Yeah.
I was fine with the other covers from the past Twilight books. This cover, for some reason, is just like she's nasty. Like the cover is nasty.
Yes. And like, I think when we first saw it, like when the cover was released, I didn't know what the heck it was.
It took a minute to like, oh, that's a pomegranate.
It's a pomegranate.
I've eaten a pomegranate before, and it's never been that juicy.
Agreed. And you know what, though? I mean, they're delicious. They're full of antioxidants. A
little bitter. But
They're a little bitter. You got to watch out for those seeds.
Right.
But I've never, like, cut open a pomegranate and just had pomegranate juice, like, spilling out of it. Personal experience.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the reason why that was on there, because it's, like, again, the forbidden fruit type thing. It's like a Hades Persephone thing. That's what I've, like, heard people trying to put together. So it's like, okay, that's like really deep, but like I don't know that from looking at a disgusting piece of fruit on the cover.
I'm sorry, I'm still caught up in this little mythology thing you just threw at me. Oh my god, what? No, but seriously, it looks disgusting.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of thinking, like, in any of the covers, right? Usually authors don't have a lot of say in the cover, but when it's Midnight Sun and it's Stephanie Meyer, I wonder if she got a say in it. Like, obviously, we all knew it was going to be the black background with the Twilight font. You know, but the pomegranate, like, you know, you hear Midnight Sun. I mean, I guess that's just asking too much, because in all of them, the images on the cover were never a literal interpretation of the title.
Yeah, because you got new moon with a flower. You got eclipse with a ribbon.
A broken ribbon.
Right. And then breaking dawn with the chess pieces, which, like, if you read the end of the book, you're like, okay, it was a big chess game.
Sure.
It's like, but it wasn't clear until the end of that gigantic book.
Yeah. Let's get into the chapters. So let's start with chapter 1. So in chapter 1, we meet Edward, Bella, Rosalie, Alice, Emmett, and Jasper. Edward wants to eat Bella and tear her to smithereens, and then he runs away. So that's just a light synopsis of what happens in chapter 1.
Yeah, the first chapter is called First Sight, so it's you know, like, as a Twilight fan, you know exactly what that means. It's like, okay, Edward's about to see Bella for the first time.
Right. And that's exactly where it starts. It's like he arrives in the cafeteria and he can hear everybody's thoughts that there's a new girl in town, Isabella Swan, and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so you're thrown smack dab right into that starting moment of him seeing her for the first time.
Yeah. And I absolutely love, and I giggled. So the way he first describes her is... It's so funny because he keeps describing her this way. He's like, and yet, though her thoughts had been so clear in her odd eyes, odd because of the depths of them. And I'm like, you're making her sound like a skeleton, man. Like, what's wrong with her eyes?
She was just bones. Yeah. No, I actually have a problem, and he keeps calling her translucent.
Oh, yeah. That is odd.
So I just see her as like this walking sack of blood. Like he could just see her body shape with like muscle and blood and veins.
Yeah, and odd eyes.
Yes, and odd eyes. Don't forget the odd eyes. Don't forget them.
I do. So the thing that I did like about this, and one of my like reservations about starting to read this was, okay, so how different is it going to be from Twilight, since this is in his perspective? And I, completely forgot about him being able to read thoughts. So it's super cool to like actually not only get to see what he was thinking in those situations, but like his siblings and like Bella's like friends in air quotes. And, you know, looking at you, Jessica, you two-faced bitch.
Because of Mike.
Because of Mike. But one of the things I loved was that right off the bat, he's like describing what his siblings are talking about or thinking about. Yeah. And I love how it's like, oh, you know, Emmett, he always speaks his mind, so it's like nothing really going on there.
Yeah.
Jasper, suffering, ... It's like, oh, poor Jasper.
Yeah. Jasper's having a horrible time. I love that the way he described his siblings, and I love the way he roasted Rosalie right off the bat. He goes, Rosalie was thinking, as usual, about herself. Her mind was a stagnant pool with few surprises.
Oh my God.
I was like, boo, 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 KO. He murdered her right off the bat.
I just love, like, in that same breath that, like, he's talking about how she sees, like, other students or, like, catches a reflection or whatever. And she's just, like, I could see her in her head being like, nope, not it. Nope, not it. Nope, better than you. Better. I'm like, get it.
For sure. But Edward does not appreciate it at all. Yeah.
He's just a big mental eye roll.
And, like, I had kind of gotten to the thought of, like, why Carlisle like kind of chose all of them. You know what I mean? Because it's like some of them have like literal powers, right? Like Edward can read minds and Alice can see the future and Emmett is incredibly strong. And it's like Rosalie.
Pretty.
Slam and bod.
Yeah. I live for it though. Like I stan Rosalie because there takes like an extra like, not that she's like a mean girl, but she's just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I am who I am, so just deal with it, and I love it.
And I think that you kind of need that balance of Rosalie, right? Because later on, as we all know, Alice and Bella become best friends.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, if it wasn't for Rosalie, then everybody would just be smitten with Bella. And you need that balance of someone being like, why is she here?
And you need the doty little Emmett to be like, well, like, I have to be on Rosalie's side, even though, like, I like her too.
Even though I want to, like, high five Edward.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then they also talk about, like, the thing that Emmett is thinking about. He's like, how he lost that wrestling match to Jasper last night. I'm like, what goes on at the Cullen house?
A bunch of wrestling.
Just wrestling. Gorging themselves on deer, you know, staring at each other in the kitchen because they don't use it. You know, it's just like, what is happening?
Yeah, so that's like the basis of chapter 1. Like he sees her for the first time.
So after he like lightly tears apart all of his siblings in the cafeteria, they then have to go to class because even though they're all like 100 plus years old, they're in high school.
Again.
So his first class is biology. And guess what happens? Guess who is also in that class?
The girl that walks in front of the fan and blows her scent right up his nose.
That's right. That's right. And then he
freaks the fuck out.
Yeah. Like, so the entire rest of the chapter is him thinking of ways, like the quickest, cleanest ways to murder everyone.
Yeah. Her and all of the witnesses. This is like, so I remember reading this part in Twilight from Bella's perspective, And her just constantly being like, what the fuck is wrong with this weirdo next to me? And then you find out the whole time Edward is just like, how can I just break all these people's necks and drink all of her blood? I'm like, oh, this is dark real quick. Okay.
Super dark.
I just love that he was like, I knew it would happen now. The girl would have to come sit beside me and I would have to kill her. The innocent bystanders in the classroom, 18 other children and one man, could not be allowed to leave, having what they would soon see. He's just like going in on it.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, now I'm going to just have to murder everybody.
It's like, I'm a sociopath and this is my best plan of action. Like, he's like,
hi, I'm Edward, and I'm a serial killer.
Hi, you guys. This is how I'm going to kill everybody in this classroom. Like, breaks down like, oh, it would take me this long to snap 4 of their necks. I'd probably have to kill the teacher first. She'd have to witness all of it, but it wouldn't matter because I drained her so quickly. It got really dark. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah, and then so concludes chapter 1. So, like, right off the bat, we don't get all the Arizona background, the stuff from Bella, obviously.
Right.
It's just like, okay, meeting the girl... I'm fucked now because I want to kill everybody and her.
If I can just remark on this, the way Edward speaks sometimes is like a Victorian, like old English person in a play. And he says this one thing, it says, except that I was not the only student who was aware of her today, though no one was as blisteringly aware as I. Edward, stop. It's like, you know, now it's 2020, but like back then it was 2005.
Right.
No one talked like that.
Yeah. But, you know, a 90-year-old high school student definitely does.
Yeah, totally. So let's get into chapter 2. So Edward runs away because he like is like, if I don't leave, I'm going to just rip this girl apart.
Right.
And then he has some snowy interaction with Tanya.
The Denali.
Yeah.
Coven. They're like sister
Those
coven.
sisters, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he decides to head back to school since he can't stop thinking about Bella. He tests his limits in the school cafeteria and then heads to class to sit next to her.
Again.
Yeah. He then ditches Spanish to spy on Bella and Jim.
He's like, I mean, right off the bat, even though like his inner monologue keeps going back and forth between like, I want to eat her. Why do I like her so much? I want to eat her. I need to go see her. Like back and forth. It's like, you went like completely like stalker level like from that show, like real quick.
Penn Badgley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, real quick. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's really sort of off-putting in a way because it's like when you were with Bella, you were kind of this like teenager in high school experience like this sort of like beautiful, weird, mysterious guy. And it's like to get into his head is super creepy.
It's like, oh, he was there the whole time. Watching and reading all of your friends' thoughts.
Totally. Yeah, to spy on her. Yeah, it's totally...
Because he couldn't read her mind.
No. Right.
And spoiler, she had like powers, I guess. The whole
oh
time.
My God, just jump ahead to Breaking Dawn. Just so many books. What's her deal? Yeah, so it's really crazy. And they're all just kind of like, all right, he's back. He's trying it. What's going to happen? We don't know. One of the things I love, though, is that Emmett, who's kind of known as like the dumb jock, or at least that's how he was portrayed in the movie, he said maybe one of the wisest things, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're kind of smart. He goes, you've got to learn to get over things like I do. Eternity is a long time to wallow in guilt.
I mean, like about time.
Yeah.
They make him like seem like somewhat smart.
And I don't think that was from a fortune cookie. I think he came up with that on his own, and I was really
it can't
proud.
Be from a fortune cookie.
They don't eat.
Yeah, they don't order takeout.
They don't eat.
No.
And that brings up another thing. They touch a lot on sort of the biology of being a vampire,
yes,
which I really liked. So in the first chapter, sorry to rewind, he talks about the things that they have to do to look like normal humans.
Right. So you can't just like not breathe.
Yeah.
You have to like kind of fidget and you have to kind of move and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. I did like that.
I thought that was really smart.
I like how he was like, I'm going to look at this crack on the wall for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Look at the other crack.
Like imagine like having to plan out all of the weird involuntary things that you do. Like I'm constantly touching my beard. I'm constantly looking at this or that. Or like, biting my nails or whatever. It's like they have to plan that out perfectly to make it believable that they're
wasting
humans.
So many school lunches. Yeah.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah. It's like that would be a red flag for me. Like knowing these like creepy like siblings that are all dating each other. Like they're just always in the back of your mind and you would kind of notice things that they do. It's like none of them eat their food. No. They just keep throwing it away.
And it was mac and cheese today. Everybody loves mac and cheese. So delicious.
That's the weirdest thing. Not that like they disappear when the sun comes out, but like they don't eat their food.
They don't eat their food. What a bunch of oddballs.
And in chapter 2, we do get another description of Bella from his perspective. And it's she was actually sort of pretty for a human in an unusual way. Better than being beautiful, her face was ... unexpected. Mm-hmm. Not quite symmetrical. It's like, wait, so is it like skewed a bit? Like you're painting a really weird picture of Bella.
Wait, I want to go on from there. So then he goes, as I stared into those oddly deep brown eyes.
There it is again.
The color was like milk chocolate, but the clarity was more comparable to strong tea. There was a depth and transparency near her pupils. There were tiny flecks of agate green and golden caramel. I'm like, nothing is more romantic than staring into someone's eyes and being like, your eyes are the most gorgeous shade of chamomile.
It's like a nice murky pool of tea.
If I were standing in a puddle and I kicked up the dirt, I would think of your eyeballs, milk chocolate tea lady.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. Oh, so it's like, you do think she's attractive, sort of.
I mean, he just has like a Victorian way of describing people that's not very flattering today.
Right.
Yeah. Whatever.
Tea time. Delicious. So this is when we get the scene, right, where there's like their first interaction where they're talking, and it's like the anaphase, prophase biology thing.
I mean, the super cute, like meet cute.
Yeah. Where he can't breathe the entire time.
Yeah.
So another thing about their biology that I thought was like kind of cool is like, so they don't need air to live, but they need air to speak.
Right, because that's just like biology.
That's biology, right? The air needs to go through your vocal cords, and that's how you speak. And I thought that was really cool because there's always this thing in me going like, well, they don't need to breathe. Why is it such a big deal that he's not breathing? And it's just like, well, one, out of habit, they're just sort of used to doing it. And two, you need air
to talk.
And I was like, good job, Stephanie Meyer.
Yeah, that's where like there's little moments like this because like this book is by no means like highbrow literary, whatever, but it's super fun to read. And it's like those little details. It's like, oh, like that's a good thing that you caught.
For sure.
Know? Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Love it.
So, and that's pretty much
all of chapter 2.
That's chapter 2.
Like he wants to murder a bunch of kids. He can't breathe around her. He tries to like change his schedule or whatever. Yeah. And like there is a very big grammatical error. That like, so whenever he tries to talk to the counselor and she is like, instead of is, it's it. So it's like it how the class is, it just doesn't, it's like, oh no, like second printing, catch that.
Get it. Get it, you guys.
Yeah. All right, chapter 3.
Chapter 3, Edward contemplates running away. Again. He talks to Carlisle about it on a hunt. He heads to school where he saves Bella from getting crushed by a van. They go to the hospital and she is like, you're a liar, something's up. And he's like, mind your business. Those aren't the exact words.
I mean, like, it's pretty, like, if I was looking at them doing this, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what's happening.
Yeah. So he tends to go on, even in these first 5 chapters, he goes on a lot of hunts to like, he says he is so full that
he's overfed himself.
He's like uncomfortable. Like right. I think of like a tick, like a bloated tick or something like that.
I think of myself on Friday night after eating so many carbs and drinking like 2 bottles of wine.
Oh, so much fun.
But yeah.
Putting on my comfy shorts.
Yep.
So my thing is though, is that like, so him and Carlisle go out and like they have this weird balance of like, Carlisle doesn't speak a lot out loud. He just thinks things and then like Edward replies to him out loud because
I feel like that's how also Alice and Edward are. Also.
Yeah. And they have a weird thing where he like sees, it almost feels like he sees her thoughts like a movie reel.
Oh, right. Can we talk about that for like a second? So like I love the description of that because I've always wondered because it was kind of moments where you could see that was happening from Bella's perspective.
Sure.
Where in the movies, it's like, how are you like seeing this? But I guess like because he can read minds, he can also kind of see, like feel and see what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So like that includes the visions too.
And that's true, right? So he can, whatever it is that she's thinking Alice, he sees. And I actually was wondering about Alice because, I mean, I'm hoping for her like I'm worried about a character, that she can turn this on and off. So she is not like, is she just constantly bombarded by these like flitting of different scenes in her mind? Or is she able to be like, okay, now I'm tuning in to this thing?
I mean, I feel like it's stronger when she's more connected to the person. Because I don't think that like, she has a hard time seeing like stuff with Bella, like particularly early on. But like when it comes to Jasper, especially since she has that such big connection, she can be immediately like, oh, he won't kill her. Oh, he won't do that. Like, oh, he's being fine or whatever.
That's another thing, though. I do feel bad for Alice in that respect, too, because she's constantly worried about Jasper.
I mean, she's like the lookout for everybody.
That's true.
That's a big responsibility. Like, I don't know how her energy is so high and she's so happy all the time.
It's the pixie cut. That's the only thing.
Yes.
It's the pixie cut. But they're really, so that's is another interesting thing of seeing their powers play out and how they can kind of interact together. Because like, although romantically Alice is with Jasper, like by their powers and teamwork wise, it feels like Alice and Edward are really a great pair.
And that was a good, I guess, thing to happen whenever the car accident was about to happen. When Tyler's van was about to hit Bella, he automatically like saw it in her head a split second. And he's like, I gotta go save her.
Gotta go. GTG. Gotta get over to that van.
Yeah. And that was actually really cool to find out what was happening. Because from Bella's perspective, Edward just showed up out of nowhere and like saved her while also like hitting her head on the ground. Not great at saving people, Edward. But you got to see like how he realized it was going to happen. It wasn't just like reflex. It was like, oh, Alice saw it was happening. I need to go act on it type of thing.
And not to kind of talk about the movies or anything, I do love being in this world again within a book where like in the movie, he literally jumps in there, stops the van. That's it. But there's like a whole thing where like the van is flipping around and it's going to hit them again. And he's got to stop this way. He's got to push her down this way. I mean, he actually hit her. So he pushed her down so hard she hit her head.
Right. It wasn't great.
Whoopsie. Sorry, Bella.
Oops.
My bad.
Yeah. And like just reading that car accident again, I'm like, this car accident is a mess. Like, he's like, oh, I stopped it, but no, it's spinning this way. Oh, I need to lift it and also hide the evidence. I'm like, oh my God, like you're stressing me out right now.
I also just want to like jump forward a bit, so I apologize. But so Tyler's the one that's driving the van that almost kills her. And then later on, he's like, I'm going to ask her to that dance. It's like, Tyler.
Because I almost killed her. I need to like treat her to...
corsage.
A late night dinner at Denny's.
Yeah.
Like,
never turn down a late night dinner at Denny's.
I wouldn't.
Oh my God.
Just saying.
That's all right. Probably I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So that's the big thing here. And
he starts like talking to Carlisle though about like when he goes to the hospital after they take him, and she's like, okay, he's not normal. Something's happening. Bella, like, you know, something's weird about this family. He goes to talk to Carlisle to be like, she knows what's up. Like, I'm so sorry. I had to save her. What was I supposed to do? And I could feel him in his mind being a little like, you like her. Like, ooh. I love Carlisle. He's probably my favorite character in the entire series. Him and Esme. Like, love them.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're the best vampire parents ever.
Yeah. Like, good job, Mom and Dad Vampire. Yeah.
Although, can we just talk about the scene when Carlisle is... putting up her x-rays of her head or whatever. Oh, yeah. And he says, look at all the healed contusions. How many times did her mother drop her? Carlisle laughed to himself at his joke.
It's so... what, like, are they that bad on the x-rays? Like, should she get checked out more?
Are we worried about Bella? And like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I was like also wondering like maybe she has these weird spots on her brain and that's just her power, like what her power will be.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's why her brain looks different.
Or she was dropped so much that she just has so much scar tissue that like that's what her power is.
And that's why she's so dull.
Good point. I did want to talk about that. Like, I like Bella so much more in Edward's perspective because, like, I remember reading Twilight, especially the first one, and being like, oh my God, Bella, like, I'm trying to like you, girl, but, like, there's something about you that is so annoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You love Bella in this. Mm-hmm. Well, it comes up later on, but she's actually, like, a really good person.
Right. You get to see it from the outside and not, like, her getting to the good person, like, decisions. It's like, oh, no, she's selfless. She's, like, super cares about everybody. She suffers in silence.
Yes.
Like,
and she really has, like, she stands up to Edward. And that's really cool. And that's where, like, at the end of this chapter, so Edward, after talking with Carlisle, like, so his whole thing has either been, like, I'm going to murder her or I'm going to have to run away.
Right.
And then he kind of comes to this thing of like, well, maybe I could just be nasty to her and that'll push her away from me.
Yeah,
and then that'll be
her.
good enough. Right?
I'm going to ghost her.
Yeah, I'm going to ghost her because also she knew I was not next to her at the van. I kept saying to her, well, no, I was right next to you. She's like, you were not. I don't care how many times you tell them I hit my head. You were not there. So he decides the best way to deal with this is be like, girl, bye.
Okay, so closing chapter 3, like where, she almost got killed, whatever. Bella's suspicious. Edward's family is pissed.
Yeah.
Okay, so chapter 4, there's a family meeting. They're using the like round table for like the few times that they use
it's their dining room conference room.
Yeah. And there's this whole thing of like, I love the inner monologue of him being like, depending on where people sit at this round table, that's their alliance. So like Rosalie sits directly across from Carlisle and Edward, and then like Alice sits next to Esme. So it's like the alliances are being built, and then Jasper's just like not sitting at the table at all. He's like, whatever. This is where also Edward finds out that like Jasper's going to kill Bella because this needs to be dealt with. Rosalie's on board for it. She's like, kill this bitch. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then of course Emmett's going to go with whatever. And Edward just thinks the best solution is to disappear. But Alice has the right answer. She says there's two things.
Yep.
You're either going to fall in love with her and she's going to be a vampire. We're going to be best friends forever. Or you're going to murder her like you've been thinking for the first 4 chapters of this book.
Yes. And Edward kind of like does this thing where he's like trying to think of different situations to try and change the futures. And Alice is like,
nope.
No. And she's like, BT dubs, we're going to be best friends. So like try not to kill her. But if you don't let her become a vampire, then you're going to kill her.
So this brings me though to when in Twilight, it kind of seemed like a big switch for him. Like the original one. Cause like Bella's like, why is he like liking me now? Like, why is everything happening? But in the background, all of this stuff is happening. So because of Alice, his like push to like realize he's in love with her and to like accept her and bring her in and everything was because of Alice.
Totally.
The whole thing.
And I really like kind of seeing this as well because I felt like in Twilight, it was such a like random thing that like Alice was just like, we're best friends now.
Right.
And I feel like this actually gives us a little more insight into her seeing that future and knowing that that's the possibility. So I really appreciated that. I agree that I also loved that Rosalie was just like, okay, well, we'll kill her.
Yeah.
Like, no big deal. And he's like, yes.
She's not even pretty.
Yeah. Look at me. I'm gorgeous. Forget about her. She's the worst.
I don't have odd eyes.
No. Mine are either amber when I'm eating deer or... black, however they go in that world. But I just like sort of thought this thing was like, she's just like, yeah, I'll kill her. That'll be it.
Yeah.
And he was like, don't you dare.
Yeah. And then good job again. Mommy and Poppy, vampire dads and moms. I said that really weird, but, they're like, no, we're not going to kill them. We're going to see how this plans out. Edward can read minds. Alice can see the future. We're covered, guys.
Yeah.
Also, Jasper's not doing anything to calm the situation when he's the only one that can change people's emotions.
Right. So that's like his power, right? I forgot that he has that power. So he's like this empath that can feel powers and then feel powers.
Emotions.
He can feel emotions and then he can change them, which I think is really cool.
Nah, I'm just going to let this warpath keep happening.
Like, he has a lot to deal with. He's still very hungry for human blood.
Yeah, but, I mean, can't he use that power on himself? Like, I don't...
Good call. Like, being hangry is a real thing.
Right, so... but if, like, Edward's not, or Carlisle, like, can't he just, like, take that feeling? And I don't know. I don't know how the power physiology
Maybe we'll
works.
Get into it a little more.
Yeah, hopefully.
Maybe he has contusions on his brain.
So... That's pretty much the chapter.
It's the meeting.
Yeah, it's the meeting, and then Edward coming to the realization, like, well, I love her. Like, I think I'm gonna, like, start opening up to her, see my limits.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. So, chapter 5.
Chapter 5, Edward gets into cardio. His Bella obsession continues and is therefore tormented. He goes into full creeper mode. So, Edward decides that his way that he's going to sort of deal with this obsession with with Bella is
short for Bella.
It's even shorter. It's like you have Isabella, and then you can call her Bella, and if you want to get real crazy, call her Ella
Or Elle.
Or Belle. So he just runs. Like, he just keeps running halfway to Seattle. Like, that's his deal. Like, he gets to the sound and he can see Seattle, and like, that's his way of dealing with this. He just likes to run his feelings out, and then maybe that'll make him not want to kill her. And then he goes on another hunt where he eats like 8 deer, an antelope, some elk, and a black bear, which was really lucky because they should be hibernating. He says that. He's like, he's like, they should be sleeping. But it doesn't work. And he's still obsessed with her. He
starts talking to her more, which is like the main, like, I guess the driving force for chapter 5. It's like, okay, like, fine, like, I'm this brooding guy, but like, I'm starting to like come to terms with how I feel and like what I've been feeling about this. And like, when he's confusing Bella again by like not ignoring her and like talking to her and trying to do small talk or whatever and being like, oh, you know, that like line of guys that kept asking you out that you made that lie up about going to Seattle or whatever. Like, I heard all that and like, it's pretty funny. And then like, she gets like oddly like, you know, mean or rude because she's confused.
Yeah.
I would be too. And he says, cause she was like, oh, you know, I know that you like regret like saving my life. Cause he's like, regret what? I demanded, for not letting that stupid van squish me. She snapped. And he's like, I froze, stunned. How could she be thinking that? Because you've been an asshole to her.
Yeah.
Like, you saved her life. You said you would give her answers. And then you're like, bye. We can't be friends. Like, it's just better if we're not friends. It's like, I would be confused too. Like,
totally.
Yeah.
And this is the chapter where I really started to like Bella, because this is when you see her like doing things, like people say things that they might be embarrassed about, but then she'll be like, no, that is really cool. Comic-Con is awesome. Like, she kind of goes out of her way to make people feel better. Right. Like, she gives her locker to a best friend so she could be to a friend so she can be next to her best friend. And it's all like, you're like, oh, Bella's really cool. And I like that. When he comes up to her out of nowhere, she's like, oh, you're talking to me now? Right. You know, I enjoyed seeing that other side of Bella.
Like, she's not a pushover.
No, not at all. Yeah. And I think that's
the Kristen Stewart in her.
Yes. Yes. So I really appreciated that. I think chapter 5 is sort of this thing of like building on his infatuation with her and her kind of being like over it. Right. Yeah, you've been kind of back and forth on this whole thing, running out of class the first time I met you, staying with me in class the next time. It's not cool after you had disappeared for months. Right. So I really like that. And then we kind of get to this last scene, or like one of the last scenes, where he's
like upgraded his stalker status by 1,000, because if you remember the movie or you remember the books or whatever, like, I remember she wakes up and she was like, I felt like he was there. And in the movies, he was there or whatever. And it's like, oh no, he was actually there, because he was like, let me just like go to the Swan house and like climb up the side of the house and stare at her while she's sleeping.
Stare at her when she's sleeping, hear her talk in her sleep.
I love his reasoning though. And like how he tries to like not feel guilty with this, because he's like, you know, we've covered up murders. We've done like so many worse crimes. He's like, then why should I feel so guilty over one little misdemeanor? It's like,
breaking and entering.
You're stalking a woman that's sleeping. Like, that's terrifying.
Oh, he also covers the Cullen history though, where he's like, listen, insider trading, no big deal when you're immortal. He's like, illegal documents, I don't care.
Yeah, how else am I supposed to go to high school 17 million times?
Yeah. It's like total sociopath murder thought process. Like, well, I've already killed 8 people. What's one more?
It's like those moments. It's like finding out more about the Cullens, like even right off the bat, the first 5 chapters. I'm like, yes, I love this stuff. This was the stuff that you didn't kind of find out until way later. Mm-hmm. But it's like, also you're finding out a little too much about them. I'm like, oh, you guys are awful. Like, I don't know. Like, I love you, but I don't.
I guess it's sort of that reminder that they're vampires. They're murderers. Like, we saw them as like this like gorgeous blonde and brunette family that was like perfection, but
that floated when they walked.
Oh my god. But in reality, they're killers.
Yeah. But like, I wouldn't do it any different though, too, because like, of course I would have to forge documents and like lie.
Oh, yeah,
and,
sure,
like,
sure.
Yeah. Of course I would have to. Yeah. And then I loved, so like rounding out this chapter, I loved the name drop of the book within this chapter because, and I quote, he says, "My life was an unending, unchanging midnight. I must, by necessity, always be midnight for me. So how was it possible that the sun was rising now in the middle of my midnight? Midnight sun, name drop."
She's like typing that. She's like, got the title.
Within the first 5 chapters.
Yeah.
Oh,
Stephanie Meyer. She knew what she was doing.
so like, I mean, how do you feel so far? How do you feel about this book so far?
So I completely admit to loving being back in the Twilight world.
Thought it was going to be hard, but it's kind of enjoyable.
Yeah, it's kind of enjoyable. My thing is that what I liked about Twilight is that Twilight felt like it had more of a plot, right? So we have that buildup. You had mentioned it before, right?
The mystery.
Right, the mystery. We're in Phoenix, right? Oh, we're learning about Bella. She comes to Forks. There's that whole thing with her dad.
Aren't people from Arizona supposed to be tan? Like that whole thing? Yeah.
And then, and we, you know, as the audience, we know what the book is about. We know he's a vampire, but we're still waiting for him to finally tell her. So it's like, oh, it's coming. Whereas with Midnight Sun,
it's taken a while.
It's just nothing of that. It's literally the moment he sees her. It's literally Twilight where Edward enters from his perspective.
Right.
I would have liked, now granted, we've only read the first 5 chapters, so who knows if this is going to happen, but I would have loved if we would have had just like maybe a prologue of, I don't know, him gearing up for another year at school, or
a little
like
more back,
first,
like lead up.
Like the first time he was on a hunt or something, you know, it literally starts with them hearing about Bella Swan.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm missing. I'm missing the actual plot of a book where this is literally like, this is what Edward was thinking every time he was dealing with Bella.
Yeah. And like, it's not bad, but it is very kind of like jarring. Like right when you start reading, it's like, oh, this is literally like right when Bella enters.
100%.
I mean, we find out stuff in the background, which is really cool because we never knew it because it's all Bella's perspective. She just didn't know.
And it's definitely not a standalone, right?
No.
So you can't just pick up Midnight Sun and enjoy Midnight Sun. I think you'd have to have read at least Twilight.
Yes. Yeah, to understand, because they don't like, there's not that big exposition. There's not this big like kind of world building stuff. You're like finding out facts and like little tidbits as you're reading that you kind of have to know. I do want to applaud, like, I don't know how hard it would be to write the same story from another person's perspective, because it's like anytime Bella talks, that had to have been said in Twilight.
Absolutely.
So it's like, I mean, I applaud that just right off the bat. So,
and she's fitting those puzzle pieces together for us. I mean, do you have any thoughts about the overall feeling of the book?
It's definitely Twilight. It's definitely teeny drama, stuff like that, which everybody consumes, you know. So I don't know. I think there's this funny running theme of like, I don't know how much you know about 50 Shades of Grey, and only because I worked in a bookstore and I would read it over the intercom after we closed to torture my employees, that Anastasia, the main girl from 50 Shades of Grey, has this inner goddess. And Edward totally has that, but it's his like inner monster. So it's a very funny, like, I don't know, just like comparison between the two. But like, we're going to have an inner goddess moment in this book with Edward.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I would hope there's an inner goddess moment for sure.
Yeah. So chapters 1 through 5, next chapters.
We'll see what happens. So it's starting to blossom. Like in the back of my mind, I'm thinking of what's to come. Sparkly field moments, baseball.
The meadow is coming.
It's soon.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And so that brings us to a very special segment that we decided to do because Stephanie Meyer found a thesaurus while writing this book.
She said, highlight, right click, thesaurus, select, replace, done.
This is a special segment we like to call Edwards. His SAT prep words that Edward decided to say within his own mind.
So we've chosen 5 from these first 5 chapters. We've highlighted quite a few, but we thought that these were the most fun ones. So in the first chapter, he actually says this word twice.
Ooh.
And it is tedium.
Ooh.
Noun. The quality or state of being tedious.
Okay.
Tedious. Adjective.
Are you just being tedious by doing this?
I am, but I felt like I needed further explanation because I was not happy with that. Means tiresome because of length and dullness.
Like the setup to get to him saying that he's a vampire so far in these first 5
Ooh, roasted. The next word is vitriol.
Ooh.
Noun, bitterly harsh or caustic language or criticism. Or, and this might be the one I think she means, this definition, a sulfate of any various metals.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Like scents. She smells like farts.
The next one is succubus.
Yes, love it.
Noun, a demon assuming female form to have sexual intercourse with men in their sleep.
So Rosalie.
I guess?
I think that's who it was referring to.
Is that who he's
right?
talking to?
Yeah, because I think he was like, you succubus, and she was like, you wish.
Oh my God, Rosie. Dirty girl. Yeah. These are all from Merriam-Webster, by the way. I'm just saying. Okay, so we did some research here.
Well, of course, yeah.
Went to a trusted source. The next word is sulfurously, a form of sulfurous, which is an adjective of relating to or containing sulfur, especially with a lower valence than sulfuric compounds.
I mean, sulfur smells like farts, so I'm thinking that something in this book smells like farts.
Maybe?
Yeah.
There must have been a horrible scent. Or of relating to or dealing with the fire of hell.
Okay, so that's probably the one that Not farts.
Not farts. But farts is always a good choice. When in doubt, go to farts. It's a life motto of mine. Our last word of Edwards is attar. Noun, a fragrant essential oil, as from rose petals.
Oh, I thought you meant like, get at her.
Get at her.
Yeah.
Get her.
Get her.
Get at her, Edward.
That's how she meant it.
That probably, yeah. I think it's because like Jasper is Southern, right? So he's like, get at her. Is he Southern? I remember that.
In the movies, I think they made him Southern.
They
but
did.
I think he came from the Civil War, right?
Totally.
Okay, yeah, so maybe he is Southern.
I don't know.
Get her!
Get her. Get her, Edward. Before I do, I'm going to rip her apart. I'm going to eat her.
Love it. Love it.
Well, on that Southern note.
Stay tuned for the next episode and the next chapters of A Bite of
Midnight Sun. Thanks for listening to A Bite of. Artwork and editing by our own Noah. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at A Bite of Pod and on Facebook at A Bite of. If you have questions, recommendations, or just want to say hi, you can email us at abiteofpod@gmail.com. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Please be sure to rate and review to spread the word. Hope you join us next time on A Bite of. Bye.